Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hi guys, welcome back to another very special episode. And today I'm so excited about the topic we're going to be talking about because it's something that truly can help you. In fact, not too long ago, I had John. John, you know who you are. I'm not going to embarrass you. I remember you mentioning that you were having some few difficulties when it comes to facing the future, and you were having a bit of anxiety there, which represented quite a number of people that are listening to this. So we thought we might bring an expert to help you and many others deal with this very real fear that a lot of people are facing here today. So we've got Dr. Todd Pressman on the show today so that you can learn what it is all about. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And also we've got Trevor, a dear friend of mine and our co-host here, joining us here to maybe ask some other questions which I may forget to ask. And it's always great to have Trevor on the show. Trevor, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Now, Dr. Todd Pressman is a clinical psychologist, an award-winning speaker, and an international seminar leader. He has authored 3 highly acclaimed books in the field of human potential and is recognized as a media expert for his work. In 1982, he traveled around the world studying the great wisdom traditions, including the Zoroastrianism. I get that wrong. In Mumbai, I will let Todd tell us about that shortly, and many other things that Todd has talked about. And today we want to focus on deconstructing anxiety, the journey from fear to fulfillment. Todd, thank you again for joining us here. I know I've muddled up a bit of your introduction there, but please tell us more about yourself and how you got started on this journey.
Sure, Early, and no muddling involved, no problem at all. Well, I think the best place to start is by saying that I was born to a father who was a psychoanalyst and a mother who was a social worker. So really, what chance did I have? I had to be a psychologist, right? But I came by it honestly because around the age of 12 or 13, like all good adolescents, I started asking the big existential questions. Why are we here? And what's the meaning of life? And who am I really? And I wanted to get some real answers to the big problems of human suffering.
Yeah.
I then was very fortunate, as you mentioned a moment ago, to have the chance to be on a program called Semester at Sea. It's a program in the United States, so I don't know if your listeners would have heard of it, but we traveled around the world on a ship while taking college courses.
Wow.
And we were free while in port to adventure wherever we'd like, but we studied also with some amazing figures, one of whom was the Zoroastrian high priest you were starting to talk about.
Yeah.
He really taught me the meaning of, in Zoroastrianism, they say, you reach your fulfillment through good deeds, good actions, and through good intentions. And he embodied that. He was just a powerful presence of love and goodness that made quite an impact on me. And we went to Sri Lanka, where I had the really rare experience of seeing the firewalkers in the jungles of Sri Lanka. This was, not some Tony Robbins workshop where you take a couple of hours of training and you walk on the hot coals. This was an ancient tradition passed down from father to son that taught me about the powers of the mind to overcome what we think of as usually our physical limits. And a Zen master in Kyoto and fakirs in Bali, all very extraordinary teachers who, again, opened me up to an awareness of just what the mind can do. Much more expansive and much more extraordinary than what we usually think of as possible.
Wow.
So as I'm looking for answers to the questions of how to deal with anxiety and suffering, I realized that I need to learn what these guys are teaching, because if I can open up my own capacities in terms of expanded consciousness and transformation, and teach that to other people, then we have some real solutions for any area of our lives that we feel stuck in or troubled by, and certainly applies to the business arena. I've worked with lots of people who are CEOs of big companies or small mom and pop shop owners and solopreneurs and the like. And these principles seem to apply universally.
Right.
So people tell me that the Deconstructing Anxiety program, which is what I call it, really does help get at the root of what it is that's blocking us from our greatest potential. And that's what my work is all about, realizing our full potential.
I love the concept of realizing full potential. I remember when I went to Tony Robbins for the first time, I walked on fire. At first I thought, gosh, I cannot do this. But after, seemingly like 10 hours of being told what to do, the level of faith that you have, and then you walk on it and you think, gosh, what else can I do? It opened up my way of thinking that there are certain things that perhaps I'm not tapping into it, or certain potential I have that I'm not tapping into it. And I know listeners may identify with that as well. Todd, tell us more about this fear, first of all, before we go further into this subject.
Sure. I became an avid student not only of Western psychology, but Eastern psychology and even spiritual traditions. In my understanding, spirituality gets a funny rap sometimes, but it's really just the discovery of who we are when you peel away all the layers of the defenses that we've learned over a lifetime that cover up our authentic identity and who we really are supposed to be and what we're really supposed to be doing. So that becomes what I call spiritual. And the essence of the Deconstructing Anxiety model says that if you don't find out what that core fear is, that fundamental belief system in the back of our minds that's holding us back, we're not going to be able to realize the potential we were talking about earlier on. Yeah. So fear or anxiety, I think those words are synonymous, became the central focus of my work. And I realized that you can't get a true sense of satisfaction in life until you've worked out that hidden anxiety in the background. So I like to talk about 5 core fears, which are universal themes of loss that everybody buys into. We all have them, right? These are the fear of abandonment, you could say rejection or loss of love, the fear of losing identity, like we spoke of a minute ago, the fear of not having a real meaning, a sense of high worth and value to our lives. The 4th one is a sense of purpose. We need that in order to be fulfilled. And the 5th one, of course, is the granddaddy of them all, the fear of death, which would seem to rob us from our chance to find that identity, meaning, purpose, and love. So these are the fears that all of us struggle with. And if we can identify exactly that one core fear that's distorting our entire perception of who we are and what life is about, get our hands on that and really transform it, we've got some power to make life change.
Wow, amazing. Truly amazing. When we talk about the subject of fear, for me, it's because you cannot see it, sometimes it's very difficult to pinpoint it. Now, if you're talking to somebody who is not so sure, like John, who spoke to me and say they are afraid of future and you want to help them, talk us through the steps that you take them so that they get to discover this fear and deal with it accordingly.
Sure. Well, the first exercise in the Deconstructing Anxiety program is called Digging for Gold.
Right.
And it's designed to do just that. And I call it Digging for Gold because there's gold in that information. What is the fear behind the scenes that's holding me back? I like to use the analogy from The Wizard of Oz. You pull the curtain back on the man in the booth who's pulling levers and dials, like in the back of our brains, but making for these terrible, scary holograms out there. And the Digging for Gold exercise, it's actually very simple to describe, very, very powerful in its results. You start with a problem, any problem, and you state it in a short single phrase. Money is the answer, right?
Right.
Then we ask one of those three questions of that new problem, one level deeper, one level closer to the core fear. If I am afraid I won't make enough money, what am I afraid will happen next? I won't be able to pay the bills. And then I keep asking those questions. What am I afraid I'll miss or lose if I can't pay my bills? I might lose my house, right? And so on, until we get down to the root level, one of those 5 universal themes we talked about. Loss of identity, loss of meaning, loss of purpose, or loss of health, which can lead to fear of dying, is something that we all struggle with. So even in something that seems as simple as, I don't know, I got a collection notice from the debt collector.
Yeah.
In that moment, it might seem like not that big a deal. All right, I'll pay it. But there's a little bit of tension, maybe a lot, that in the background goes right to that core fear every time. And if we don't get our hands on that, if we don't pull those levers and dials like the man behind the curtain, we're not going to be in the master of our own lives. That fear is always going to be making decisions for us and making poor decisions that keep us from our fulfillment and our potential.
Yes. Amazing. This reminds me of a program that I did, again, with Tony Robbins, of digging deep in why, your reason why, and you keep on going until you get to the core of it. Sounds similar to that. Now, for some people, Todd, who perhaps have done this but seem to struggle to get, to actually go through the exercise, is there any way of ensuring that they actually do this?
If they find their core fear?
Yes.
Oh, sure. It's a deceptively simple exercise, right?
Right.
You simply state a problem and you ask one of these 3 questions over and over. But it's very tricky. The mind can be very tricky. This is where psychology comes in, because what I call defenses, or a chief defense, I'll explain that in a moment, can interfere, can keep us from not only getting the answer to, what's the fear troubling us at the root, but why am I blocked in my purpose in life, and how come I'm not succeeding in my business? Yeah. So we need to understand how defenses can interfere with our understanding of ourselves. A chief defense is the primary strategy we use to try and protect ourselves from that core fear. So something happens in childhood for all of us, right? And we learn that the world can be scary. We can't tolerate that. It's too upsetting. So we have to come up with a solution. And we try different things, and we look at our parents and how are they responding to the world. And we come up with this solution called a chief defense, which again is supposed to protect us from that fear. Well, it might protect us for the moment, right? So I have the fear of losing love, and I say to my partner, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave me. That's an extreme example. But that works for the moment, right? They say, okay, now we're back together. Everything's fine. In the next moment, it only takes a moment. We're busy saying in the back of our minds, well, it worked for this time, but what about next time? And what about the time after that? And what about the time after that? And this is what I call the lie of fear. Fear lies to us, saying that, it's going to be our friend. And if we keep paying attention to fear, it'll keep us safe from fear. But it always backfires and just fills our minds with more and more anxiety. And there's never enough security to be sure that problem won't come and get us. This is why the solution, in very broad terms, is always to do the opposite of what we've been doing, the opposite of our defense. We don't want to just protect ourselves from that fear, because it'll bring up the same fear in the next moment, and it'll bring it up bigger and greater. That's like Einstein's saying, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, each time expecting different results.
Yeah.
But we want instead to say, let me not try to protect myself from that fear in the right ways, in the right dose, so we're not overwhelming ourselves, and find out that fear actually doesn't have any teeth. One of my favorite quotes is by Michel de Montaigne. It says, "My life was filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." And there's actually a new study out that shows, get this, 91.4% of the things we worry about never come true.
Wow.
91.4% of the time, we're making it up completely. And I like to say we're projecting out this three-dimensional, multi-sensory hologram that we call our world. That's all built on fear. That's not even real. And the other 8.6% of the time, it's not a big problem. It's not what our fear says it will be. It's something manageable that we can always deal with. So the exercises of the Deconstructing Anxiety program, called the Alchemist, the Witness, the Warrior Stance, and so forth, are all different ways of taking out that defense to face the fear safely in our imagination and discover it just doesn't have any validity to it. It literally disappears in our awareness. Our whole perception opens up, our consciousness expands, and we see what our true potential is.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. How do you follow up on that one, Todd? I love the way you simplify what seemingly is a complicated subject and make it so plain. Now, John, for example, who has lost his business recently and reached out and said, "Man, I'm afraid, I've got this anxiety." What would you say to him right now, to get him moving?
Well, if I gave a one-sentence answer, I would say find safe but real ways to take actions that face your fears. Because each time you do, you will discover 91.6% of the time, there's no problem. It completely was an illusion. And the rest of the time, there's a problem that you're very capable of dealing with. If I gave a more elaborate answer, I would talk about the exercise in Deconstructing Anxiety program called vision questing, where we lay out our vision. It's not the same as a mission statement or just goal setting, because the purpose is to design a picture of fulfillment. Like I ask people, what would have to happen in your life for you to be able to declare yourself completely fulfilled in every domain before you die? And then you look at what are the fears that stop you from taking the actions to realize those goals. And when we work on the fears and work with the exercises to get rid of those fears, then the path to that fulfillment opens up spontaneously. There's nothing else to do. It's just right there. The next obvious step for fulfillment and the realization of potential shows up. It's always waiting for us. It's easily available once the distorting lens of fear is taken away.
Amazing. How long does this process take, for those who are interested in knowing how, I want to move my life from where it is to where I want to be? How long is it going to be? A very quick one coaching session or a long period of time?
Interesting question. I'll give you a few answers that all come to the same point. In one session with one of the exercises, people can have, and usually do have, as remarkable as it sounds, they usually do have a complete release of fear. And they say, everything looks different now. I see it. My life has changed. It won't necessarily last. Sometimes it can, until we repeat it enough that we become convinced that the learnings of a lifetime ever since childhood, right, don't apply anymore. We really see over and over this stuff works. Another answer is I have a structured program, whether it's the Deconstructing Anxiety Intensive or the Deconstructing Anxiety Certification Program, that is 8 weeks long. So you can say it's an 8-week program. But really the answer is, it takes as long as the person's willingness to let go of their defenses. Remember, when we let go of our defenses, we face the fear, and immediately we see that it's not real. That can happen in an instant.
Wow, incredible. While we are talking on that, where can people find, some of your trainings, or maybe to engage some of your services?
I guess my website would be the place to contact me, and that's my name, toddpressman.com, or deconstructinganxiety.com. They both lead to the same website. And I have a page there with some different offerings. I have a book out called Deconstructing Anxiety. That's the full program if anybody's interested in really diving in deeply. And anybody can email me at any time with questions. I love questions, comments, feedback. And my email address is toddpressman@comcast.net.
Awesome. And we will also put the links to your website below this audio recording as well for those who want to take the learning further. Todd, I want to look at these core fears that we talked about, the fear of abandonment, all of them, fear of death. Let's explore that for a moment. What is it really about them that stops people from actually moving forward?
It's interesting. It seems to be built in to the human experience.
Right.
I could give you a very long, I think, interesting answer about how we were born wanting, in a funny way, to experience ourselves as separate from our fulfillment,
right.
Separate from what they call oneness, right? In the original experience, there was a sense of oneness. We knew that in the womb, right? We're just one with the mother and one with the universe, and everything is perfect. Then we come out and the umbilical cord is cut and we're separate. And we grow up and we become more and more separate. Now, this is necessary to become an individuated, autonomous human being, as we say in psychology. But then we need to let go of that separation and start to rejoin that larger collective, join with our fellow humanity in order to become fulfilled. You can't be fulfilled all by yourself. So these 5 core fears come along to create that sense of separation. And again, something's going to happen to all of us in childhood. In my seminars, I sometimes show a video of she must be 6 months old, 6-month-old child in her crib screaming, not wanting to go to sleep. And the father picks her up and comforts her and puts her back down, and she starts screaming again. He picks her up, he comforts her, puts her down, she starts screaming. After a while, the father crawls into the crib. The baby lies on his chest and is totally at peace. So there's an example of the fear of abandonment, right? If the father goes away, I am not okay. And children don't have the life experience to know that it's just temporary, right? Mom leaves the room to get a bottle of milk. The child thinks my lifeline of survival just left. I'm going to die, or I'm going to lose my identity, or something like that. These things are built in because we want to find a reason to feel separate so that we can become that individual. We want to be an individual. And that's the necessary path before we can come back to feeling joined with the collective humanity. So these 5 categories I described are just those that I discovered through my years in practice as a psychologist really do capture what all of us buy into in a belief system. All of us have a fear of being abandoned. All of us have a fear of losing our identity. Like, how many of us wear masks, right, that hide our authentic selves? Loss of meaning, loss of purpose, and everybody can relate to the fear of losing their health or dying. But there's one fear out of those 5 that becomes the central theme of our lives. That's the one that we're first exposed to. That's the one that we first make sense out of, to say, oh, this is how the world can be scary. Then we build a cheap defense. This is how I'm going to protect myself from that. And guess what that makes? That makes a personality. Core fear and cheap defense together make our personality. It's how we go around life. There are also moments of fulfillment. That's part of our personality too. But too often it's like, I'm looking out for signs of my core fear. I'm ready with my chief defense. I'm going through life with this kind of warrior's attitude of, I've got to fight off all those dangers out there. And that's obviously not a very fulfilling way to live. So we want to do something about that.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Sounds really good. Can I just bring up on one point that you mentioned there? So what I find a lot of the time, not just business owners, but generally a human aspect is we all procrastinate. And I think a lot of the time procrastination is down to the fear of making the wrong decision, making a mistake. Would you say that the core fear of that would be the fear of rejection?
That's very interesting and well said. There's an interesting principle when we do that digging for gold exercise, asking those 3 questions. What am I afraid will happen next? Why is that upsetting to me? What am I afraid I'll miss or lose? And that is that even as a psychologist, I can't predict what the answer is going to be for the client that I'm working with. Or if I'm working as an executive coach with a middle-level manager, I cannot know what their core fear is. They have to discover it spontaneously. Because I'll give you an example. I was working with a radiologist who had 5 radiology centers, very successful businessman. And I started working on this exercise with him. And he said, he was doing some consulting work in addition to his own practices. He said, my employer was not happy with my performance. Why is that upsetting to you? I said, well, he might give me a bad review. If he gives you a bad review, what are you afraid will happen next? And he said, I might lose my job. If you lose your job, what are you afraid would happen next? And I thought he might say something like, I won't be able to take care of my family. I'll get into financial trouble. But no, he said, I'll lose the respect of my peers, my colleagues. And we kept going with the exercise. And when he found his core fear, it was a loss of identity because he grew up with a father who was very, very critical. And my patient could do nothing right. And he built a chief defense saying, I'm going to prove myself to my father. And I'm going to be super ambitious. And I'm going to build all of these radiology centers and so forth. Totally surprised me because it looked like it was going one way versus the other. So it's a great scenario you described, Trevor. And it's only one possibility. Every human being is unique. That's what makes us so interesting. And everybody has their own personality built from this core fear, this chief defense, and a drive for fulfillment.
Amazing.
Okay, no, that's good. So do you find that the chief defense is what stops an individual really asking those kind of serious questions about ourselves? Because a lot of the time we'll stay within our comfort zone, won't we? Because we know it is familiar. It keeps us from the fears.
Absolutely. And it's what would stop a business person from realizing their goals because we have devoted a lifetime to this chief defense. It's our whole personality. There's an interesting exercise in the book, Deconstructing Anxiety, called Charting the Float. I've forgotten the title. Charting the Path of Your Life Journey. And you create a flow chart that shows how your earliest incident that you can remember of your core fear and your chief defense helped make a decision that led your life in this direction to the next key moment where your core fear and chief defense came up, which then led to this decision down here. And you can chart exactly how you got to where you are in life today because that core fear and chief defense have been making decisions for us out of our control and out of our awareness. Once you get awareness, you can change that, of course. But it's not only the thing that stops us from asking the big questions, it's the thing that stops us from everyday, even moment-to-moment decisions. And one of the exercises in the program is called the warrior stance, where we freeze in the middle of some activity that, we're just doing to get done what we have to get done. but it's coming from the cheap defense. It's the same old old. It's going to get the same old results, which aren't very satisfying. So we freeze and we say, I want different results. And we need the courage of the warrior to not move off of our mark until all that fear, oh my gosh, if I don't do this the way I've always done it, terrible things will happen. They wash over us. Then they quiet down more and more and more, and then completely disperse. And your vision just changes, the perception changes. You say, that was completely made up. Now I can see all these other possibilities for how best to accomplish my goals. And you may go on doing the same thing, but with that total sense of freedom from fear and a clarity and an enhanced energy. It liberates enormous reserves of energy to be able to meet that goal.
Amazing. Wow. It is fascinating. Todd, we are coming toward the end of our time together here, but I just wanted to perhaps ask about, for those who I knows they have a fear they're dealing with, and they start making some progress towards that. What sort of mistakes have you observed people make on their journey, really, to wanting to uncover these fears? But oftentimes they don't even know they're making mistakes.
I think Trevor hinted at it a moment ago. I have a line which is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's very profound if you think about it. A lot of people don't think they have anxiety, right? I say we all have anxiety. And the people who don't know it happen to be, here's my line, conveniently located for the time being inside their comfort zones, inside their defenses. But life's going to take those away. At some point, life's going to challenge us. Our defenses will not work. So we need to become wise to the fact that there is inherent anxiety in life. That's part of being human. But we have these tools now for not only resolving the anxiety, but literally clearing a path to fulfillment. And it's fulfillment which is our first drive. It's fulfillment which is why we're here. What's the point, of living our lives or trying to create a successful business? It's not just to make money. We want money, and we want to be of service, and we want to help change the world in order to create fulfillment. So that's the big message that I like to give people. We've got to get our hands on the fears that are stopping us and the defenses that we keep repeating over and over again, not getting anywhere like a hamster on a wheel, and say, let me find a different way. There's got to be a better way. And the better way is finding the fear, facing it in an appropriate, safe way. You can't just face it willy-nilly. You've got to do it in a very skillful way, understanding the nature of these 5 core fears, and then dispersing them, seeing there's nothing really stopping us from who we want to be and what we want to achieve in life.
Absolutely amazing. You know what, Todd, I would love to take you up on some of your services personally, because this subject is one that is so important. I think every business owner needs to take some time, identify what is stopping you. It may be in one area of your life or maybe another one. And I think it would be great to catch up perhaps at the end of our conversation here to see how perhaps I can, use some of your services, because there is a great knowledge here.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Awesome. I know you also talk about building an unstoppable team. Would it be possible? This is me being cheeky here. Would love to talk to you about that. Maybe at some point in future, when time permits for you, to show our audience here how to build a great team.
Absolutely, because everything we've talked about today has tremendous implications for how we relate to one another. Creating more and more of that collective oneness. An unstoppable team is one that really feels like it's one personality, right? That's working toward one goal of fulfillment and clearing out the common obstacles in the way. So yes, I would love to talk about that another time.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Todd, for being here with us. Is there anything else around this topic that you really want to share with our audience that I did not get to ask you about?
2 things. One is never doubt, please, that resolving the obstacles, you don't have to think of them as fears, but the obstacles to fulfillment or success in business, or any other domain in life, in your marriage, in your relationships, and whatever. Never doubt that that's possible. We do have the tools now to get our hands on those levers and dials and really make change. It's very reliable and repeatable. You can do it every time. And then the second thing would be that I mentioned to you earlier, I have this free ebook it's called Quotes and Stories That Can Change Your Life. We talked about one or two of them today. They're really, really fun. And it's free. I just love to give it away. And it's got a lot of these principles in them. But please email me for that or visit my website. You can see how to get it there. And I strongly encourage people to take a look at that. It's fun.
Amazing. Amazing. There you have it, guys. Trevor, any final words from you?
I think it's fascinating what you've been talking about. And I guess I'm just kind of thinking, for somebody that wants to kind of hit the ground running and really sort of put a dent in all the things that have been limiting them, I'm guessing just getting your book, reading through it's not really enough. It's the interaction, the coaching side of it that you provide that really kind of hits the nail on the head quicker. Is that right?
For the most part, yes, because we need to get skillful in finding out where our defenses are tripping us up. That can be tricky to see for ourselves, but it's not impossible. The book is very thorough, and sometimes that works for people, but otherwise, the one-on-one coaching is usually very, very helpful, and it's much more meaningful to be able to tailor the program to the person or the business or the group.
Yeah, it's like a fresh pair of eyes, isn't it, into their lives? Yeah. That isn't by those chief defenses. Yeah, no, that's really good. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, Todd, thank you for being here with us today. Truly appreciate your generosity in sharing your knowledge with our audience here today. And if you've been listening and if you've got any questions, please head over to Todd's website or shoot him just a quick email with your questions, and he'll be delighted to help you. Or just join us in the LinkedIn group there. The team will be there, and I'm sometimes in there to answer any questions that you may have. Until next time, I want to wish you a great success. Go spend some time with your loved ones. I know it's a bit tricky right now with the COVID, but truly spend time with those that make your life better. With that said, have a great time and talk to you all very, very soon. And goodbye for now.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukai.businessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.